Hello, and welcome to another lesson from Level Up Mathematics. In today's lesson, we will be reviewing how to solve two-step equations. Now, solving an equation is simply the process of finding the value of the variable that makes the equation true. When we solve equations, we are undoing what has been done to the variable in reverse order. Let's look at example 1. Consider the algebraic expression 4x plus 3 and the related equation 4x plus 3 equals 31. In step A, they want you to evaluate the expression 4x plus 3 for x equals 8 and list the operations that occur in the calculations and the order that they occur in. So remember, when we evaluate an algebraic expression, we replace the variable, in this case x, with parentheses. So instead of 4x, we'll put 4 parentheses plus 3. Then you're going to substitute in your given value. Now in this particular problem, the given value for x is 8. All right? And then to evaluate this, we use our order of operations. So we have 4 times 8 plus 3. And in the order of operations, we multiply first and then add. So 4 times 8 would give us 32, and 32 plus 3 would give us 35. So when we evaluate the expression 4x plus 3 for x equals 8, we get 35. Now, the second thing they wanted us to do is list the operations that occurred to the variable x. So what did we do to our x value, which was 8? Well, step 1, we multiplied it by 4. I'll just abbreviate multiply. And step 2, we added 3. So we multiplied by 4 and got 32, and then we added 3 and got 35. In part B, it says, is x equals 8 a solution to the equation 4x plus 3 equals 31? Pause the video and think about that for a minute. All right, what did you think? I'm going to go with no, because 4x plus 3 equals 35 when x equals 8, not 31. So in part C, it says solve the equation 4x plus 3 equals 31 by reversing the operations you performed in part A. So if I were going to reverse the operations in part A, I would work backwards. Instead of adding 3, now I would subtract 3. And instead of multiplying by 4, I would divide by 4. So we're doing the order, we're reversing the order of the operations when we solve. So let's show how that works. And you probably remember this from previous courses. So if I have 4x plus 3 equals 31, and I want to find the value of x that makes the equation, the expression equal to 31, I would first subtract 3 from both sides to get 4x equals 28. And then step 2, I would divide by 4. So 4x divided by 4 would give me 1x. 28 divided by 4 would give me 7. Now I can check this by now evaluating this expression 4x plus 3 and substituting in this new value and see if that gives me 31. So 4 times 7 is 28. 28 plus 3 is 31. So 7 would give us the value of 31 that we were wanting. All right, example 2. Verbally state the operations which are being performed on X, and then state the operations which must be done to undo the equation. Finally, solve the equation for the value of the variable that makes the equation 2. So in problem A, we have 4x plus 20 is equal to 18. So what operations are being performed on X? Well, they're multiplying it by 4 and then adding 20. So if I reverse that, I would have to say subtract 20 and then divide by 4. So let's try that. Okay, subtract the 20 and we get 4x equals -2, and then divide both sides by 4. Now, be very careful here because a lot of people think the answer is -2. So 4x divided by 4 is x, and -2 divided by 4. Let's just put that in the calculator so you can see what happens. -2 divided by 4 gives us -0.5, but we want to write that our answer as a fraction because there was not a decimal in our original problem. So -1/2. All right, problem B, -5m plus 12 is equal to 27. So we're going to verbally state what's happening to our variable. So in this variable, we're multiplying it by -5 and then adding 12. Multiply by -5 and add 12. So if I do the opposite, I would subtract 12 and then divide by -5. So let's try that. Subtract 12, and we get -5m equals 15, and then divide by -5. So 15 divide by -5 gives us -3. All right, problem C. Let's state what's being done to the variable. So r is being divided by 2 and then subtracting 8. So if I reverse that, that means in step 1, I would have to add 8 and then multiply by 2 if I'm doing the opposite. So let's try that. Let's see, add 8. That would give us r divided by 2. -5 plus 8 would give me 3. And then the next step is multiply both sides by 2. So if I multiply this side by 2 and this side by 2, over here 2 would cancel out with 2 and leave me r. And on this side, 3 times 2 would give me 6. Now we can check this one to make sure we did it right. If I replace my variable with parentheses, I want to see if my answer will give me -5. So let's see what happens when I plug in 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 3 minus 8 gives me -5. So this answer checks out. All right, problem C. We have y plus 8 divided by 3 is equal to 2. So in this problem, we're adding 8 to y and dividing by 3. So if I do the opposite, it would be multiply by 3 and then subtract 8. So let's do that. Let's multiply this side by 3. And multiply this side by 3. So these 3's would cancel out, leaving me y plus 8. And over here, 3 times 2 would give me 6. And then it says in my next step I should subtract 2. So subtract 2, subtract 2. I'm sorry, not subtract 2. What was I thinking? I was supposed to subtract 8. Let me try that again. Change to red. Subtract 8, subtract 8. So y would equal 6 minus 8, which is negative 2. Now I can check it by going back to my original expression, parenthesis plus 8 over 3. And I'm going to take my answer, let's see, and plug in my answer, which was negative 2. So negative 2 plus 8 is 6. And 6 divided by 3 is 2. And that's what it was supposed to equal. So our answer indeed checks out. Now, sometimes when you're solving problems, you're going to encounter situations where the variable is being subtracted. It's often easier to rewrite equations like that before you begin to solve it. So look at problem 8. We have 19 minus 2x, so they're subtracting the variable. I like to rewrite these as negative 2x plus 19 equals 7. So our variable, we're multiplying it by negative 2 and adding 19. So if I do the opposite, I would subtract 19 and then divide by negative 2. Subtract 19 and then divide by negative 2. So subtract 19. So 7 minus 19 gives me negative 12. And then divide by negative 2. So x equals positive 6. All right. Pause the video and try problem B on your own. All right, welcome back. Let's see how you did. The first thing I did on this problem was I rewrote this as negative 4m plus 51 is equal to 41. Then I subtracted 51. And I got negative 4m equals negative 10. And then I divided both sides by negative 4. So negative 10 divided by negative 4 gives you 2.5. Now there was no decimal in my original equation, so I'm going to hit the fraction symbol and write my answer as a fraction, which is positive 5 over 2. All right, example 4. If necessary, rewrite the equation so that the variable is on the left side, and then solve each equation. So I have negative 12 equals n divided by 2 minus 6. So I'm going to rewrite this as n divided by 2 minus 6 is equal to negative 12. So what's being done to n? We're dividing it by 2 and subtracting 6. So if I do the opposite, I'm going to add 6 and then multiply by 2. So n divided by 2, negative 12 plus 6 would be negative 6. And now I'll multiply both sides by 2. So on this side, the 2 cancels out with the 2, leaving me n. And over here, negative 6 times 2 gives me negative 12. All right, problem B. We have 2.9x plus 12.72 equals 27.8. Now, and this problem is our first problem we've done today that contains decimals. So if we get a decimal answer, we can leave our answer in the form of a decimal. All right, so my first step, 2.9x plus 12.72 equals 27.8. I would begin by subtracting 12.72. So 2.9x equals, I'll come over here, 27.8 minus 12.72, 15.08. Now divide by 2.9. So 15.08 divided by 2.9. And x is equal to 5.2. All right, let's talk about problems with fractions. So we're multiplying 2/3 times x, and then we're adding 19. So if I do the opposite, I would have to subtract 19. So 2/3 x equals 35 minus 19. That would give me 16. Now, to divide both sides by 2/3, we must multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 2/3, which is 3/2. So 3/2 times 2/3 is 1x. And then if you want to, you can multiply this on your calculator. 16, open parenthesis, 3 divide by 2, and close parenthesis. And that gives you 24. Problem E, -4 equals 1/2 b minus 6. Pause the video and try this problem on your own. All right, welcome back. The first thing I did on this one is I rewrote it so that the variable was on the left side. So 1/2 b minus 6 is equal to -4. Now I'm multiplying b by 1/2, and then I'm subtracting 6. So if I do the opposite, that means I'm adding 6 and dividing by 1/2. So when I add 6, that gives me 1/2 b. -4 plus 6 is +2. And then because I have a fraction, to get rid of it, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal, which is 2/1. So 2/1 times 1/2b is just 1b. And 2 times 2/1 is just 4. So b is equal to 4. Now, the last thing I want to talk about today is algebra tiles, because sometimes on standardized testing, you will encounter a problem that that gives you an algebra tile model, and it asks you to solve. So let's look at this equation. It says the model below represents a linear equation. Write the equation, which is being solved by the model, and then find the value of the variable that makes it true. So first of all, I want you to know that you have -x plus -x plus -x. And if you add that together, you have -3 x's. Okay. Then you have -1, -1, -1, -1. So if you add that together, you get -4. And all of that is equal to +2. So let's talk about what's happening to x. X is being multiplied by -3, and then we're subtracting 4. So if I did the opposite, I would have to add 4 and then divide by -3. So when I add 4, I get -3x equals 6. And then if I divide both sides by -3, I get 6 divided by -3, which gives me -2. And that concludes today's lesson, a review of solving two-step equations.